We have summoned together the Sunday Roundtable on OTR, and joining us this morning is Democratic political analyst Marianne Marsh and Republican political analyst Rob Gray. Great to have you with us, guys. Happy Sunday before Labor Day.
How did that happen?
Yeah, right. Good point by you.
So the blockbuster Democratic U.S. Senate race is over. Incumbent Ed Markey won big. Do we see another run from him in 6 years? And what is Joe Kennedy's next move? Let's start with Labor Day white with you, Marianne.
I know, that's exactly why I wore it. Well, very good. Sneak right in under the deadline here. Look, Joe Kennedy, from his concession speech, which, by the way, was his best speech and performance of the entire campaign, made clear that he's staying in politics. The question is, what race? Does Elizabeth Warren get a cabinet appointment later this year if Biden wins? That makes a special Senate race sometime in the spring. If that happens, does Joe Kennedy run against Ayanna Pressley? Will she run? As I've said before, she would be tough to beat, but as we saw with this Senate race, anything can happen.
Rob?
Well, we can't jump ahead too fast. First, Ed Markey has to beat your guest, Kevin O'Connor, in November. If he were to do that, then I think he's likely to be primaried again. I think he'll want to run again. I don't think he wants to leave the Senate now that he's there. But, you know, does he get a forced retirement because somebody runs against him who's too tough a candidate, a tougher candidate than Joe Kennedy, who didn't acquit himself well in this race? So I think that his future options are maybe more limited than we would have seen them 6 months ago, severely limited. But I think the Warren seat, if she takes a cabinet appointment, is probably the most likely option for him.
President Trump weighed in on this race, calling Markey a radical left no one has heard of and Kennedy semi-normal. How glad is Kennedy Trump didn't tweet that before the vote, Rob?
Well, I mean, it didn't matter because he lost anyway, right? So, I mean, you know, I'm surprised that Trump gave money to Markey long ago, but I'm surprised in the bare knuckles race that it was, that either he didn't have that op or didn't use it, or his allies use it more effectively against Ed Markey taking a donation from Trump, even though he's a much different person back then, profile back then, than he is now.
Marianne?
Yeah, great point by Rob. Look, the tweet, if Trump had weighed in earlier, it wouldn't have mattered, though it would have been used against him. I think the more important point here is the arrival of Trump-like Twitter tactics and trolls here in Massachusetts politics that came with that Senate race. That is going to have a long-lasting, terrible effect on all campaigns from here on out in Massachusetts, and that's a shame.
Congressman Kennedy is vacating the 4th congressional district. Jake Auchincloss has won the primary as of, so we'll see how this plays out now between now and November. So the question is, do you envision him, if he survives and he wins the general, of him being a team player or more of an outlier like Seth Moulton, who won his primary last week, by the way? Marianne, let me start with you.
Yeah, look, they share a lot in common. I mean, the fact is, Auchincloss and Moulton were both former Republicans. They're both former military, and I think they're a lot alike. And the fact that Massachusetts will now have 2 white male former Republicans in the congressional delegation out of 9 seats doesn't scream progressive Massachusetts in any sense of the word. So Moulton did have a challenge, not with top-tier candidates. Auchincloss has got to expect that if this stays the way it is. If he has a top-tier candidate against him in 2 years, it could be a problem.
Rob, the Republican in the race, Julie Hall, she's also has a military background too, so she can play that card as well.
She could, and again, we can't jump ahead too far. Auchincloss has to beat Hall. He has an advantage. If you look at this district, Hillary Clinton won it by 24 points. 4 years ago, Barack Obama won it by 16 points 8 years ago. Steep uphill climb for her. I think Moulton has the lone wolf position in the delegation locked down. Auchincloss at 32, my guess is he's a team player. With Democrats controlling the House, he gets himself a better committee assignment by playing ball with the more senior Democrats in the Massachusetts delegation.
I just want to add one thing to what Rob said. I mean, the fact is Auchincloss called himself an Obama Baker Democrat, and I don't ever recall Obama or Baker defending the Confederate flag or Steve Bannon. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how Auchincloss handles himself going forward. As someone who actually watched a lot of those debates on Zoom, dear God, you learned a lot about him as a person and his character and characteristics. So we'll see how he really performs.
So I agree with that, but I think it's hard to primary somebody like that once they're in office, especially when it'll be a gubernatorial election year, not a presidential election year. So
We'll see.
he's probably safe. I mean, we look at other candidates who we debated, will they get primaried in 2 years, and they usually end up being safe.
Let's take a look at the race out west. Incumbent Richard Neal easily won this primary. Was the nasty, sort of complicated sex scandal against Alex Morse a big factor in the House Ways and Means Chairman's victory, Marianne?
It was a factor, not the factor. I mean, the fact is, Alex Morse just did not perform as well in Holyoke and the Hill Towns as everybody and myself expected. So I think that was it. And voters out there decided that Richie Neal had used his power on Ways and Means and the chair of Ways and Means to really help out Western Mass and help Massachusetts, and that was the factor.
So, Rob, was incumbency again the biggest factor here?
Sure. I mean, Morse was a flawed candidate, but at the same time, it's money and momentum that matter. Morse was late on the momentum. He got the Ocasio-Cortez, valued progressive endorsement, but too late in the race. He didn't spend enough against Neal. If you look at the people who won on Tuesday, they spent at parity or outspent their opponents in these primaries, and he wasn't even close.